Ladies and gentlemen, with me today, I have Coach Marty Lowe. Marty, tell us about yourself a little bit.
I just live here in Louisville, Kentucky. Probably been here, I guess, probably 25 years off and on since playing at the University of Louisville and then coaching, for about 12 years. Moved around a bunch of times. So kind of settled back here over the last, 14, 15 years, just my kids, just kind of raising them and, being around them. So,
Yeah.
Just just living life of a dad, I guess now.
Right. So you mentioned coming up here to the University of Louisville. You were the big man on campus for a little bit. What was that like?
Oh, I don't know about all that. A little bit too humble for that type stuff, but you have your time when you're at the university, and you do what you can with it. So I was fortunate enough the last couple of years to start and be able to lead my team and just kind of being part of the program. So it's a good time, but nobody has that big of a head, or at least over here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've you've had your time with a lot of athletes around schools here in Louisville. So what would you say that the most important thing for a young athlete to learn is at a young age?
Just having fun and loving what you do. I mean, I never really thought about sports as far as anything past maybe high school or anything when you grow up and all that. So just the sport itself and enjoying whatever it is you do. I also encourage playing multiple sports. All the specializing kids do these days, and even the kids that I work out, they get locked in pretty early, and some of them have to, just because the experience of a lot of players out there in a lot of different sports. But I definitely recommend playing multiple sports, and taking breaks periodically as well. But I've just read enough studies on all the injuries and knee injuries and overuse injuries for athletes. So it's just good to take somewhat of a break. I mean, I should probably follow my own advice, I guess, but that just, at least with younger athletes like that, of taking
Right.
some time off.
Yeah. So now you've coached a wide range of athletes and they're all over the place. So would you say that the cream of the crop is here in Kentucky, or would you say it's a little bit further south? Where can we find the best high school football at in the South?
I think athletes are athletes. I mean, some of them in more states than others, but I wouldn't necessarily put myself out there to choose, because I spent time in both places. But was lucky enough to play with a lot of athletes here at the University of Louisville, that were from Kentucky. But going to high school in Tennessee, and even growing up in Mississippi, and attending my freshman year of high school down in Vicksburg, Mississippi, where I lived till I was 15. You see enough talent, you see enough athletes, but every state produces their cream of the crop, I guess. But sometimes down south there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more on the number side, but the love for athletics and sports, is it's not any different wherever you go in some regards. But definitely enjoyed growing up down south, but I wouldn't put a number on anything.
Yeah. So you mentioned you love growing up down south. What made you commit to Louisville? And did you have any other big time offers? What was the big?
Yeah, I mean, you had offers. I mean, you go through the recruiting process, and you come out the back end, a lot older, and understanding of things, and figuring out how you're going to make that decision of where you're going to go. But a lot of times it comes down to just where you think you might have a chance to play. The fastest, obviously, a program like the University of Louisville, especially back then. Once it started really coming along, that was pretty attractive to be a part of something new like that. And but there were offers at different places. I mean, it doesn't really matter now, but you definitely had a decision to make. It was very stressful, but at the end of the day, if you take your visits, and you listen to everybody's recruiting pitch, but also what fits you the best.
Right. Okay. So what was one of the toughest places that you played at as a player? The best home field advantage that you experienced?
Well, I mean, since you did talk about Tennessee, but you take Florida and Tennessee especially. I mean, Ohio State was another one as well, but just any one of those three. But numbers are numbers, tradition's tradition. I mean, when you're playing at that level of football against those type of athletes and with that many fans in the stands, it's pretty loud. I mean, you get into a few more situations when when you were younger, or when I was younger at University of Louisville, so it's a little more intimidating. But once you've done it enough and you kind of gain that experience, it's no different than any stadium you've been in as far as that goes. But I mean, I love playing on the road, so it kind of you kind of went in with a chip on your shoulder anyway.
Right. So, coached younger kids, you've coached high school kids, you've played in college. What's your favorite age group to coach?
After coaching in high school and even coaching professionally for about 5 or 6 years, and
Right.
the Arena League, and the Jay Grudens are around at that time, and the type of athletes that were in and out of the league. I mean, that were coming out of the NFL. I just was lucky enough to be around at that time. But between that and college, I do enjoy the process of watching a kid develop his mechanics from seventh grade, eighth grade up till ninth grade, going into high school and seeing what they can do with it. I mean, I do enjoy that process. But when you're talking about a kid that's that knows what he's doing, has been doing it, and you're not having to coach so much in the mechanics and the technique, there's a part of that that gives you why you got into coaching, also making those type of decisions where
Yeah.
you're not having to teach technique all the time. I get as far as their arm motion and all that. But I wouldn't necessarily put an age on it, that I enjoy one more than the other than just coaching in and of itself, and watching someone go through that process of developing their skills. And then, the experience of actually playing and reading defenses, and, making those types of decisions, to where, that's a whole nother step as well. So I just enjoy that process in and of itself.
Would you rather coach?
Well, a lot of people say that, they have, my son's coming out of college now, and he played lacrosse, his whole time at Transylvania University. I mean, just played well, enjoyed himself, and had a great career while he was there. And then explaining to him about transition out of playing, because it's really tough for guys, man, when they go from playing in the high that they get to, the corporate business world, to where, maybe it isn't as exciting or, adrenaline pushing as that. But, nothing's really caught me, more than coaching. Once I started doing that, I mean, my high school coach had said something at, I think I was maybe a sophomore or junior, and he's like, you're going to make a good coach one day. I think that's really something you're going to excel at. I mean, I just kind of blew it off at the time. But they say you get bit by the bug. But it really has given me a lot. It's given me back a lot. I've given back a lot. So I mean, it there's definitely a give and take that I enjoy, about the coaching part. And I really didn't think, you could outdo playing football, and, just the position of quarterback. I mean, I played baseball through high school. I thought there was nothing that would take the place of actually playing. But, coaching, for a lot of people, I mean, you catch that bug, and it takes people a lot to have to step away from it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. So, what was your favorite position to coach?
Well, I mean, I played quarterback, so I enjoyed it. But I'd be honest, or I'd be lying if I didn't say that. I'd love to coach on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, just the aggressive nature, and the energy that really goes into day to day, and swarming the ball, and the techniques that they teach. And obviously no different than any other position that you have your skill set, but there's just a different mind on that side of the ball. So I would have loved to maybe have been on that side of the ball for a little while, throughout my career. But I've enjoyed coaching all the positions. But obviously playing quarterback and what goes into that, I mean, you really it'd be tough for me to say that there was another position I'd rather coach.
Of course, of course. You were you played quarterback in college. So I can imagine there's some, whether it was in life or on the field, what was the greatest adversity that you faced and had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Well, I tell you what, whether playing or even as coaching, but a bunch of athletes that you get hurt, you have a bunch of injuries, and for me, I mean, I've had 13 surgeries. I mean, I just had a total knee replacement, and I'm 50 years old, and 12 surgeries, and sometimes stuff like that happens, and sometimes a little bit faster for some people. But then, as you get older and, still trying to stay active as a coach and, even trying to go through that of dealing with, bone on bone, for my knee, and I could go back to playing as well to where you have either a bad game or, people doubt you or, heck, maybe even you doubt yourself, and then I've always kind of had a life of, a second chance. So, given that second chance and then learning from it and, that to me, the adversity of dealing with that, whatever the situation may have been, and then still at the end of it of being as successful as you can, when your number's called. But there's always people better, but to do the best that you possibly could, with the time that you had. So that's my take.
Okay. What advice would you give to high school kids who are trying to get to the next level? Because you put a lot of them there. I go to camps and I see kids throwing the ball. I've told you this before. I can almost pick them out who works with you and who doesn't because they just have a certain motion to them. It's like there's the Marty Lowe throw.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any magic potion or anything, but typically if kids will stay with it consistently, the mechanics and matching the mechanics and or mechanics to their footwork as well. But the consistency of staying with that and you know going through that process as I spoke about earlier, and just feeling that you got a really good chance, to get better at that type of skill. But it definitely takes some consistency, that's for sure. But to give them advice, of where these high school kids are at now and where they're trying to get. I mean, all these offers that I hear people are chasing and all this other stuff, and that's fine and good for the top 1%, the five stars. But all the other kids that are working hard and trying to get better at their skill and their craft. I mean, that's the biggest part of me of not trying not to focus on, because I have had enough kids come through that they're going to this camp and that camp and paying money to be a part of this recruiting service and that. And whether it's going to matter, whether it's not, I've had a lot that just continue to focus on that and then forgot about the actual hard work and skill development that they needed to put in. And therefore, I think when it came down to it, they probably weren't as better actually performing their skill than they were obviously the worry of what offer they're going to get and what conference you're going to go to. And then next thing they either fall down the recruiting board or just never get on it, for that matter, because of things they could have focused on. You just seen that, and you just hate for people to get wrapped up in the wrong things.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Now you said you're from Mississippi, so I'm assuming you had family down there still. Are you all Mississippi State or are you Ole Miss guys?
Oh, we're Ole Miss. I mean, that's when you're talking about the state itself. I mean, regardless of who won what college baseball World Series the last 2 years. I mean, it's just like our program here at the University of Louisville. Not too bad in and of itself. But when you're down south or when you're in Mississippi, I mean, at least when you're my family, I mean, it was Ole Miss all the way.
Okay. Do you think we'll ever see head coach Marty Lowe ever again?
Well, no, I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I mean, I teach special education in Jefferson County Public Schools. Gosh, I've got probably 80 to 100 kids that I'm working out year round, whether it be quarterbacks or a couple other sports and speed and agility type things that I do on the side. So at 50 and kind of being in that world enough, and then enjoying what I'm doing right now. And gosh, even raising my kids the last 15 years. I mean, it's been, it's been rewarding. So that's not really my focus anymore.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you have a training business. Do you want to tell people while you're here how to get a hold of you? How can we reach you? Because you're kind of hard to get a hold of sometimes.
Well, I don't know if I would go that far. I mean,
If people don't
people are
know,
busy. I get that, but I mean, mine's pretty much been word of mouth. I guess about 3 years ago, really once my daughter got into high school and my son was in college, I decided to just kind of put it out there of, just doing individual, quarterback work. I work with wide receivers with it. Typically we'll put it in groups with quarterbacks and receivers. I have girls, lacrosse players I still work out, as well as field hockey, skill development and speed and agility as well. And in between each one of those sports, I do speed and agility work as well. So, I've just kind of done it, on my own in my own spare time. And then it's gotten to be the point now where it's, especially with the quarterbacks and probably seeing 75 or so from kindergarten all the way, to a year or two in college, you put a lot of time in it. So, those numbers are a little bit higher, but trying to keep up with it,
right?
gets to be a bit tough. But, like I spoke about earlier, just with the process of developing kids and seeing kids, stay with me for a year or two. Trevor Havel, that, is going to pretty much start at St. Xavier, this year. I've probably had him since he was in fifth grade, before I really, was kind of doing it, semi, a little bit more than halftime, but not quite full time. It's just a lot of times gone into it. You've seen a lot of kids develop, and now they're starting to get, junior, senior in high school. So it's rewarding and it's fun to see. But you're a teacher at heart, so coaching just kind of comes, with it, or vice versa.
Of course, yeah. You love it, you love it.
Yeah. Oh, and if they, you can reach out to me on Facebook. I mean, I'm there. That's how a lot of people have gotten a hold of me. But I'm on Facebook, obviously Marty Lowe, and you can find me that way.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll give you a shout out. Maybe you'll get something off of that. We'll see. But anything else business wise you want to talk about, or?
Oh gosh, no.
All
No.
right.
If you come out, you get your money's worth, and the fact of just developing kids in that nature. But I appreciate that.
Okay, for sure. Yes, sir. Well, this has been Coach Marty Lowe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.